Greetings. I'm Doc V, Vaughn Shores, and we're going to continue our discussion today about African American males and where they land on Maslow's need hierarchy. We're going to go back down to the bottom, physiological needs, and for today's purposes, we're going to talk about socioeconomic status. Yes, we have some great African American leaders who have accomplished much. Engineers, doctors, scientists, President of the United States, and the list goes on. However, as a whole group, our demographic is suffering because of the lack of education. Education is directly related to one's ability to provide for themselves and to establish a certain degree of socioeconomic status. 50 years ago, a young man could drop out of high school and still do fine because we were in the age of manufacturing, the manufacturing age, where a young man could get out of high school and get paid $18 an hour for working at the factory. Work time and a half, 50 hours a week, you can get time and a half on $18 and you can bring home a pretty good check. So this was good. You could have a family, raise children, get your mortgage, afford an automobile, and live a pretty decent life. Well, things have changed. Now we are in the age of automation. 50 years ago, they had 50 men on an auto assembly line assembling your Ford product or your General Motors product. But now, to get the same job done, they hire 5 or 10 men because the rest of the money is spent on robotic hands and machinery and computers that are able to do what manual labor used to do. So what does that mean? That means that it's time, or it has become time, for people to become educated and to become trained. The African American male has not done that. He has flunked out of high school, or he has dropped out of high school at the rate of 52%. Some of these young men, they have unrealistic aspirations of being professional football players or professional basketball players or rappers, or I'm going to start my own business. I don't need a degree. I don't need a diploma, or I'm going to hit the lottery. And this is all well and good, and these things have happened for some. But statistically speaking, it's going to be a problem for most of you. Most of you are not going to obtain these type of benefits from dropping out of school. If you can find yourself able to dunk from the foul line, boom, or see a ball coming at you at 200 miles an hour and pow, you can pop it over the fence, you might have a chance because you're exhibiting abilities that are very rare. But most of us, we cannot do that. So, what's the answer? Why are young men dropping out? A lot of it starts in a household. You've got many parents that blame the teachers. They blame the schools. And then you've got the teachers that blame the households and blame the parents. Who's at fault? I'm not going to point the finger. Yes, I am an educator, but I'm not going to point the finger. The problem is deeper than just he didn't do this and she didn't do that. But it's a little bit deeper than that. So let's talk about it a little bit. Families that raise successful children have been plugging into their lives or placing and contributing to their minds and to their mental state, and to their emotional state from the time that they're babies. They've been nurturing them, loving them, reading to them, talking to them, and letting them know what they're about to face in the world. These young men, be it black, white, Asian, Hispanic, they do well. But there's another family situation where mom is a single parent. Mom is working 2 jobs, trying to pay the mortgage and trying to pay the car note, and she does not have time to nurture that child beyond making sure he or she is fed and making sure he or she has proper clothing. There comes a time where that young man needs more than just physiological needs, but they need some things imparted into their mind, into their soul, into their spirit. And that's where the drop-off, happens. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about ways that parents can be involved with their children, how parents can infuse habits that are positive or that are conducive to educational tools and skills needed to be able to compete with the rest of society. And we're going to talk about things to avoid. When you drop out of high school, young men, you destroy your chances of being recruited into the armed forces or accepted into the armed forces. When you drop out of high school, you destroy your chance of being able to be accepted into colleges and universities. When you drop out of high school, the hundreds of jobs that are available, 80% of those are not going to be available to you because you're a high school dropout. High school dropouts, this is a rough one. And I always preface that because I don't want to offend anyone. But they did a survey and they gave a test to inmates all over the United States, all over the country. And there was like 50 questions on the test, but there was 3 specific questions that they put in there. So you couldn't figure out what they were trying to probe from your mind. And what these tests revealed were that just about 99.9% of the time, those people that were in jail for long term, I'm not talking about just going to jail because you didn't pay child support. I'm talking about long time prison inmates. They're in there. What they have in common is that when they were in school, when they were in grade school, when they were in high school, they did not follow the program. They skipped school. They didn't go to school. They got in trouble with the teachers. They got in trouble with their peers. They just could not follow the rules. And what happened as this snowballed into bigger crimes. What started off as misdemeanors or, they give you detention and send you home, or the police come and arrest you, then your mom come and picks you up. And what that turns into is more serious crimes. And something needs to be done about that. Parents, I don't blame the parents. They're trying to work. They're trying to make a living. They're in a situation that they didn't apply for. They didn't sign up to get with a man and he makes you 2 babies and then he leaves you. They didn't sign up for that. And then you're trying to nurture that child, bring that child up by yourself. You didn't sign up for that. I get that. And then they have boys clubs and girls clubs all over the neighborhood that you can put your child into, but you can't afford it. You didn't sign up to be in that particular situation. But this is where the problem starts. It starts at a young age, and it starts with that child's surroundings and with their role models. Some of these rappers, and I don't want to get in trouble because I don't want any of the rappers coming to whoop on me. Some of the songs reflect what they went through growing up, or what they went through in their environment, or what they went through in their neighborhood. And they're singing these songs, but a lot of these songs are talking about beating women, robbing folks, hitting people over the head. And the kids get this in their system. They get this in their systems where you don't tell me what to do. I'm grown. I remember I asked a young man, I said, could you please sit down and stop talking? I'm trying to run the class here. He said, I'm a grown man. I'll be 18 in 6 months. I'm a grown man. You don't talk to me like that. So I had to diffuse the situation by pulling him out into the hallway. And I tried to do the grown man thing with him. Like, look, we're not with your peers anymore. You don't have to worry about getting embarrassed. I'm pulling you aside. They don't know what we're talking about out here. I'm trying to teach a class. I'm trying to be fair to you. I'm trying to go man to man with you and see if there's enough mutual understanding and respect that we can get something accomplished here. I'm trying to teach the class. I'm not trying to diminish your manhood or who you are, but I'm trying to do something here. You gonna help me out, brother? And then we can talk about this later. Maybe something's going on. Or I'll try to be more gentle when I'm redirecting, but can we work this out? And then he appreciates that. I didn't embarrass him in front of his boys and his friends. So, he's fine. Young men, especially young black men, have a lot of pride, have a lot of pride and power and strength when it comes to protecting their own and protecting themselves and their loved ones. Let me give you an example. I was in class and there was this young man who liked this young lady, but she was not giving him the time of day. She was like, go somewhere. So he's throwing paper at her. He's throwing things. I said, hey, could you stop throwing paper at the young lady? I'm gonna have you picking it up. I'm gonna call the administrator. You're gonna be out of here. And he was like, yeah. So the young lady was trying to do her work and he's still throwing bigger paper wads at her. All of a sudden the young lady jumps up and she runs out of the room. I said, wait a minute, you cannot run out of the room. I gotta call the administrator. You can't just take off out of the room. And she took off. And I was looking at the young man. I said, what are you doing? So somebody was knocking on the door. I guess it was the young lady coming back, and I opened the door and the young lady was at the door with her brother. Now her brother's on the football team. Looked like a little 5'7" Mike Tyson, neck, and he looked just like her, but the male version. And I was like, whoa. I said, look, don't come in here and start. He said, Mr. Shores, Dr. Shores, I'm not gonna cause any problem. I said, look, and as soon as I said, look, he shot under my arm and ran around me and ran up to confront the boy. And I was like, oh no. And the young lady was standing there like this. And the big brother walked up to him and he looked at him and he said, is there a problem? And the young man was like, no. He still took another step toward him and looked at him and said, is there a problem? And he's like, no. So the brother looked at him, turned around like that scene on Swamp Thing. Just turned around and started going out like Frankenstein. And I was like, woo-wee. Immediately, I went back to teaching the class. Okay, let's go turn to page 453 and talk about the division of the different types of business acquisitions, And I was trying to get back into it. The girl was sitting there and the young man was sitting there and I was just trying to diffuse the situation. And the young man couldn't take being humiliated. He just couldn't take it. So the young man got up. Next thing I know, chairs were flying across the room. Yes, these were all African-American young men and ladies. Chairs were flying, zipping across the room, and students were dodging and like, man, what are you doing? And I was like, stop. I was like, somebody ring the bell for the administrator. He's throwing chairs all over the place because he was so humiliated that he had to just fight back. He had to take it out on me instead of the young lady. Now let me ask you something. Do you think one of those chairs even got this close to the young lady? Do you think the air from one of the chairs whipped by and made her hair go up at all? No. Like the Winans sang, no. No chair went near that girl because that young man, he was hurt. He was embarrassed. He had to retaliate. He knew I wasn't going to beat him up. All he was going to get from me was the detention. Maybe another student, if he would have hit with a chair, maybe something would have happened. But the young man had to get out of that classroom. Administrators came and got him and pulled him out. And I was thinking, whew. Well, guess what? I really wasn't mad at the young man. I really wasn't angry with him. He got checked. He got seriously checked. He had a lot of pride. The young lady kept ignoring him, putting him down. And that messed with him a little bit. The young lady went and got her brother and came and, is there a problem? That messed him a little bit. And his manhood was attacked. He had to do something. I understood. I was ready for a chair to come, so I had to catch the chair, but, everything was good. So what is my point in that story? My point is that there's a lot of black pride, and there's a lot of anger, and there's a lot of frustration in our community. And a lot of these young black men are suffering because they don't have the right or the adequate prerequisites to help them be effective in the school situation. They didn't have mom reading to them when they were a young baby. They didn't have dad bringing home educational toys educational tools and games. They didn't have dad working as a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer and coming home and sharing some engineering problems and things with their son. Because this type of home environment carries on to the learning environment. Some of these young men, mama wasn't there. Only thing they had teaching them was the TV set, was their homeboys coming in. If Uncle Ramus was not speaking proper English and you grew up and that's all you were listening to from 12 to 15, 16, 17, then that's how you're going to talk. You're just starting off behind. So what do we do? Whose fault is it? It's no one's fault, but what do we do to evoke change? I've talked enough on this particular topic. I've talked about the problem, and I'm going to talk about the solution coming up on our next broadcast. That's it for this week. I'm Doc V, and I'll see you next time.